Welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video. So a bit of a different video today, but hopefully you still get a couple of good tips, I think. I wanted to talk about just some of the practical everyday tools that I use to kind of store, clean, and maintain the CGC 9.8 comic book collection. And yeah, I kind of got a list here, and it kind of ended up being 10 things, which, you know, I was kind of amazed that there's like 10 things that I sort of use every day. But it's a good mixture of kind of the basics and some of these like other weird little things that you wouldn't really think to purchase to sort of maintain your collection. And yeah, I know for me, like I've been probably collecting graded comic books for about 3 years. So for 2 years, I didn't really have a lot of these cool little, you know, things to clean, and just makes having and maintaining a CGC collection a lot easier, a graded comic book collection a lot easier. And, you know, spending a little bit more money. Most of the stuff you get at the dollar store, besides like the main sort of, you know, storage things. But, you know, that extra money, I think it's well spent. You know, it just kind of ensures the condition and the safety of your collection. And it kind of adds to the pride of ownership, too, when you get a really good system for kind of cleaning and making sure everything's okay. It kind of, yeah, adds to the pride of ownership of having your collection, I think. So, a full list of 10 things, yeah. So, we'll start with more of the basics here. Let's get right into it, though. I use these BCW graded comic book bags. And one of the things you just want to keep in mind right off the bat here, these are 9 by 14 inch. These are the little bit bigger size that fit the newer CGC case. They're still selling those comic book bags, graded comic book bags that fit only old CGC graded comic books. So you want to make sure to get the 9 by 14 that fits the new case and the old case, because I've heard, you know, some people kind of having that negative experience buying some graded comic book bags. But for comic book bags, for graded comics, I do recommend just these polypropylene bags. I don't recommend Mylar bags for graded comic books, to be honest. My thought is, like, the bag doesn't touch the comic book when you're dealing with graded comics. Like, it's encapsulated in the case, clearly. So, for raw books, I really like Mylar bags. Yeah, because they last forever, and they're really high quality, and because they're touching the comic. It's in direct contact with the comic. But when you have a graded comic book, the bag isn't really ever going to touch the comic, so you just need something that's going to encapsulate the comic and, you know, keep it kind of airtight. And these do that. You get 100 in this. This is just a little kind of cardboard piece out of the bag. And I believe that they were like $40 or something like that. So, you know, rather than if you went Mylar and you wanted 100 bags, it would definitely be over $100 to get 100 Mylar bags. So, yeah, I think you can get away with the polypropylene kind of plastic bag from BCW, pretty good quality. So, next thing, kind of basic too, is storage for graded comic books. I have 4 storage boxes for graded books altogether. 2 of them are the cardboard CGC storage box, and the other one is the other 2 are BCW graded comic book bins. So yeah, I'll show you really quick. I got them right here. It's awkward, but this is the kind of CGC cardboard one. I got 2 of those, and they're all pretty full by now. And get this one going here. BCW graded comic book bin here. Get the gist. So I was a bit skeptical at first with the BCW graded comic book bins, because I had 2 of the cardboard, and you know, they were fine, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. But I ended up getting a BCW graded comic book bin, and I really like them, actually. They work really good, and I think the big advantage over a cardboard bin is that the cardboard is going to sort of gather moisture, because it's like cardboard, and, you know, there's going to be more moisture gathered from the air. So I think going the BCW plastic route, you know, no moisture, I think that's kind of my theory anyway. No moisture is being attracted. So probably just a little bit better from that point of view. But I think they both work, you know, but if you didn't really have any storage options right now, yeah, I wouldn't really, the BCW graded comic book bin is something I would recommend. Yeah, I wouldn't really, like, I was kind of apprehensive for some reason. I think I'm little apprehensive for change sometimes, but I really just thought the cardboard bins were fine, and I just wanted to get another cardboard bin. But yeah, usually shops have the BCW graded comic book bins too over the cardboard bins. Sometimes the cardboard bins seem to be harder to find at times. Yeah, price-wise, they're very similar too. So yeah, the BCW graded comic book bin I would recommend for storing graded comics. Third thing here, really quick, just want to talk about it, is tape. And I use one little piece of tape to sort of put the graded comic book bags on the comics. And I think the batch that I purchased of comic book bags has the strip in a wrong spot. Like, it might be a bad batch or something where they messed up on the manufacturing process, because the adhesive strip is like right on the top. So I keep the adhesive strip on, and I just fold it over and use one little piece of tape. What I would say about tape is just don't buy the really cheap tape. Like, Scotch brand is good. I find it like unsticks easy, whereas like really cheap tape, sometimes it like sticks on and then you like rip the bag by accident because it's like really cheap adhesive. So yeah, just kind of stick with the brand name tape would be my recommendation. Okay, number 4 here is, I think it's a really little helpful thing, is a Cushy piece of cardboard. So this cardboard, I purchased it at, this one's kind of beat up, my one beat up one, I got a couple of them. Purchased it at the dollar store, the local dollar store. And it's that kind of cardboard that it's like a little bit thicker, and there's a little piece of foam kind of in the inside, so it's not like just a Bristol board, it's a sort of a special piece of cardboard. I find this is really useful for, you know, if you work on like a wood bench or something like that, or a wood desk, you throw this on top, it's a little cushiony, and then you don't really have to worry too much about being really picky about handling the CGC books, whereas, you know, on a desk, if you conceivably, if it's rock hard, if you hit it on a corner or something, you could crack a case or something. So I just really like these for putting on top of whatever surface you're working with your graded comic books, just to add that extra cushion. And again, yeah, you want to get that cardboard, and hopefully they have it at your dollar store, where it's like, again, it's pretty much like about a centimeter thick, and it's like nice and cushy. So I also use this, sometimes I'll be working with the comic books on my bed, and this works really well for just kind of going on top of your bed, because, you know, you sleep on your bed and there's probably some moisture in it, so certainly would rather work on this, and it works really good for that. So yeah, just, you know, I kind of have 4 of these just around. I just bought 4 from the dollar store once, and they've lasted me enough time, and yeah, they're quite useful. So a Cushy cardboard I would recommend. Now yeah, number 5 here, we'll get all these on top. Number 5 useful thing, I find it really useful too, and it's something I just sort of added not too long ago, is a little duster magnet. Because certainly when you're, you know, looking at your CGC graded books, you know, it's hard to kind of get every little thing that might be on the case, you know, every little piece of debris. So these work really good for when you take them out of the case. Usually I'm working on top of this cardboard or whatever it might be, and you just take them out of the case and give the comic a good swipe front and back. And it's just really going to grab any dust or any particles or debris that are on the comic book. And yeah, this is becoming sort of one of my routines, where when I'm taking the comic books out of the plastics for the videos, right away I just kind of, you know, give them a little dust on top. And yeah, I find it really helpful, because before that, you know, let's call it 3 months ago, I wasn't using these. It's just kind of a newer thing. I sort of realized that is really helpful. Yeah, I would really notice like little particles. Sometimes when I'm doing the videos holding them up, it would annoy me, and I'm noticing a little particle on it or something that sticks to the cases. So this really helps a lot with that. Keeps any debris and particles off of the comic books. Yeah, and you just, you know, these are kind of standing up, so I can't be too, gotta be gentle with them. Okay, so that was number 5, really important little tool, duster magnet. Get them at the dollar store. Yeah, sometimes they have like really cheap ones, and then, you know, there's like a little bit better ones, maybe for 50 cents or $1 more. I would go for the better ones, because you want to make sure there's no, like, none of this falls off on your comic book either, and sometimes with the cheapest ones, that could happen. Number 6 is a microfiber towel. Yeah, and these are just really good for when you're handling the comic books, you can, just pick them up with the microfiber towel, so you're really never even really touching the comic books. Like one thing to mention is like gloves, and I don't get that hardcore. Occasionally I will pick up the comic book with my bare hands, is I think fine, as long as you're sort of around the edges, I think. And then when you're more handling the comic book, in your back room or whatever it might be, I like to use the microfiber towel. Another thing it's good for, if there is any like abrasive scratch or anything on the case, you want to use a microfiber towel to try and buff it out. You don't want to like use your finger or smudge, because sometimes if you just smudge on the comic, it's like permanent almost on these cases. They really smudge easy. So microfiber towel is definitely useful. And yeah, personally, I just don't go that hardcore to use gloves, but I know some people might want to use gloves too. But mention that now. So number 7 is a kind of an interesting thing, and I'll let you know kind of my theory on it, but I always put a big baking soda thing in my comic book room. And we'll talk a little bit about temperature and stuff coming up here, but I'm not sure if it does anything, but I think, maybe it keeps the air a little bit more fresh around the books, and maybe it helps with managing moisture a little bit too. Usually like I have all of the boxes sort of stacked up, and I put one of these cardboards up vertically, and then on the other side of the cardboard I have this baking soda, because you obviously don't want the powder getting anywhere near the books or anything, but just kind of keeping it nearby. I think my theory is maybe it manages some of the moisture and some of the air quality, and then every 2 months I'll just buy like a new big one, and maybe every month I'll empty some of it so it's like a little bit more fresh, but maybe kind of works like how it helps with your refrigerator managing some of the freshness of the food, possibly. Who knows? So that was number 7. Number 8 is a little temperature thermometer. You want to know the temperature, and I just have a really basic one. Ideally, to be honest, you probably want to get one that measures humidity too. This is just a really basic kind of cheap one. So when I talking, you want a thermometer, talking about the temperature that you want your comic book room to be at, I aim, for 20 degrees Celsius, so that's about 68 degrees Fahrenheit. I like to keep it just a smidge under that, and a nice cool environment. A lot of times I have, even in the winter, the windows open a crack in that room, because I like when I walk in, I like there to be kind of a chill in the air type of thing. And so just under sort of 68 is, I think, sort of the ideal kind of cryogenic temperature, where there's not enough heat in the air for any moisture to accumulate, kind of. Get a temperature gauge, so then you know the temperature, and then you can kind of aim to have your environment sort of kind of the same thing all the time. So that was number 8. The next thing is a dehumidifier. So I think any moisture in the air is a negative to comic books, basically. So you do want to have a dehumidifier. I do have a dehumidifier in my room, and certainly, it's just helpful to have it. It's gonna, the less moisture in the air, the better, and moisture is really the big killer for kind of, page whiteness, I would say, and just overall condition of comic books. So, having a dehumidifier, especially in a basement too. So really, it's even more important when you're in a basement. That's, really sort of in basements is where the moisture level really can kind of damage books, I think, over time too, like slowly. So especially in a basement, you want to have a dehumidifier. And that was number 9. Number 10 here is shelving. And this also, especially in a basement, you basically want to have your boxes like off the ground, especially if you're in a basement. There's certainly always a chance that, a flash flood or something could happen, and certainly the basement's going to go first. So depending on, if you're in kind of a floodplain or if flooding's an issue in your city. So shelving is, you want to get your books off the ground, and it's a part of managing the moisture. In a basement, I think shelving is really important. Sort of ideally, you have your books on a shelf sort of in the middle of a room where there's no sort of drainage or any, you know, obviously you just want to manage water a lot. But yeah, if you're in a basement, you probably want to have them on a shelf, and you probably want to have a dehumidifier going as much as possible, certainly. And anywhere they are, you want to manage the temperature for sure. And yeah, that's a whole list of 10. So I will put the list in the description below of everything, but I'll just go over it really quick. So the BCW graded comic book bags, make sure to get the size that fits the new case. Storage boxes, BCW graded storage comic book bins, I think are great actually. Yeah, I was skeptical, but they're really good. Don't buy cheap tape, buy good tape. The Cushy cardboard, yeah, really helpful kind of day to day, you know, and since it's a little cushy, you can use it on hard surfaces and not be worrying about kind of cracking a case possibly. The duster magnet, really awesome, quick, cleans the comic book really quick, cleans things that you can't see. Microfiber towel, you know, for handling, and I don't recommend gloves, that's a little too hardcore for me, but maybe you can do that. A big baking soda to kind of, you know, maybe manage some moisture and air quality. Temperature, thermometer, dehumidifier, and shelving. Yeah, and you know what? I think, you know, if you do that, and then, you know, a lot too, like, you obviously don't want any fire hazards around, kind of keep outlets away from your comic book collection too, and electronics, you know, I think that's a good practice too. But yeah, you know what? These 10 things, I think probably half of them, you know, especially the duster magnet, the microfiber towel, and even the temperature thing, I was just kind of going off of what I felt, but I think it's really good to have a temperature gauge. But yeah, you know what? I was thinking about sort of all the tools that I use every day. I definitely wanted to share them with the team. Thought it would be a pretty decent video, kind of a different video. But, you know, concluding up, kind of my two favorite, you know, obviously there's some of the main storage things in the comic book bags, but my two favorite things are really this piece of cardboard, which is great, I think, for whatever surface you're working on, and then the duster magnet, yeah, which is really cool. And I know, yeah, there's been many a times where I've been on camera talking to you guys and looking at the comics, and I noticed a couple particles on it and on the comic book that I didn't notice when I was before the video, and yeah, this just really helps perfect for that. And yeah, make sure you buy, you know, maybe not the cheapest ones, pay up a little bit, get the good one, and yeah, I think that's probably my favorite new tool for cleaning. Yeah, keeping them in really nice shape with no debris on them ever. And then, you know, when you use these tools, you almost never have to touch the comic. And certainly you should pretty much never touch this part of the comic. If you're ever going to touch them, it should just be picking them up here and then, like, you know, using them around the edges kind of thing. So keep that in mind too, kind of general handling practices. Because, yeah, it's a huge deal if you have a CGC 920 comic book and there's a scratch on the case or something. That's going to really, you know, it's going to really be harder probably to sell that comic book and to get a decent fair market value for it. It's really, especially with CGC 920 books, I mean, you're dealing with people that have OCD basically about, you know, things being in really, really good shape. So those scratches matter. So, you know, spending a little bit extra money on some of these tools to clean and maintain everything, keep everything safe, I think makes sense. So if you haven't already, I invite you to join the team and subscribe to Team CGC 9.8 and hit the bell to get all the latest notifications. And add me on Instagram and Twitter too. Yeah, I'll have all the links in the description below for all that. But yeah, hopefully you got some tips. Because, yeah, I know, like I said in the beginning, for like, been collecting graded comic books for about 3 years. For 2 of those years, you know, didn't have this, didn't really use microfiber towels too much. You know, I had purchased some bags, but I had most of my collection in those crappy old CGC bags. So, just really worth it to spend a little bit of money and make sure you kind of have the storage and maintenance and safety of your collection 100%, I would say. Alright, thanks so much for watching today, though. Hopefully you got some tips. And yeah, I kind of brought out 2 big keys for some eye candy, I guess, during this video. But yeah, hopefully you got some tips and for cleaning and maintaining your graded comic book collection. Thank you very much for watching today. I'll see you on the next one.